Hi, I'm Jen Cole, president of Sincro, and today I'm sitting down for an in-depth discussion with Rick Ricart of Ricart Auto Group to talk about how Ricart continued to pivot their marketing messages to customers during the constantly changing scenario with our pandemic and how they're continuing to evolve their strategy. So Rick, thanks for having us today. You want to take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and the Ricart Auto Group?
Thank you, Jen. Yes, my name is Rick Ricart with Ricart Auto Group here in Columbus, Ohio. We are a family business. I'm a third-generation dealer. Grandpa started the company in 1953. We sell Fords, Nissans, Kias, Hyundais, Mazda, Mitsubishi, and Genesis, as well as a used car factory.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having us. It's nice to actually be here in person in Ohio.
Yes, it's lovely.
Yes. And I'm also joined by Christina Rosenbach from my Sincro team. Christina's the director for our digital agency. And Christina, do you want to tell our dealers a bit about what your team does with Ricart Auto Group?
Sure. So, hi, everybody. I'm Christina Rosenbach. My team at Sincro focuses on connecting our people managed agency services with our technology to create meaningful experiences for our customers and for their customers. I get the pleasure of working with the Ricart Auto Group as well as my team, and we've been partnering closely, especially during the pandemic, just helping to enable the business strategy you guys really already had in place.
All right. So, gosh, starting in May, we saw a massive impact to the economic climate, consumer sentiment, and lots of dealers reacting in different ways in their local towns. Rick, what were you seeing here back starting in March?
Oh my goodness. It was March 12th, exactly. And I was flying home from Jacksonville, Florida. I was in the Atlanta airport, and my phone started getting text messages from family, from coworkers, from friends, with everything from conspiracy theories of the whole country's about to be locked down to, oh no, what's going to happen to us? And I thought, we need to adapt quick. There's people that are scared. We got to take leadership of this and figure out ways to continue to not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah. And, we at Sincro work with thousands of dealers, and we saw a wide range of responses from dealers who hunkered down. Let's wait and see. We don't know what to do. And then we saw really some dealers lean in and make quick decisions. And I would put Ricart in that category. What are some things that you all did before the pandemic even hit that allowed you to act fast in the way you did?
Yeah, and one of the things that's always been a strength for us is our able to turn around a marketing message quickly, be able to adapt what our actual creative marketing message is. And just opened in the beginning of March a big fleet and commercial center that works on a lot of company vehicles, public and government vehicles. So from the essential vehicle standpoint, we had a department that we knew was going to be something that the city wouldn't be able to continue to operate without the service that we provided. So there was a little bit of hope and faith that, okay, at least we have a shining light. We didn't know what was going to happen with the rest of the retail side. But one of the things we're also prepared with was the digital retailing side. And we have an online express checkout tool in place. So we knew if it got down to we had to only be able to do remote deliveries and figure out new ways to serve our customers, we had tools in place and training that had already happened. So we were a little bit ahead of the curve there. But still, there was so much unknowing that I think some of the fear-based approach that some dealers took was they just cut everything. They took all their expenses. Of course, there was a lot of layoffs and furloughs because of the unknown. Right. And when it comes to marketing, let's face it, anytime a company's struggling, one of the first things that anyone wants to cut are marketing dollars. They're easy just to cut back. But the problem is we can't completely turn off that faucet. We have to make sure that if there is anyone in the market looking to repair or replace their vehicle, that we were available, we were open, and we had a solution for them immediately.
Yeah, you all seem to really jump on that messaging and engaging with your customers so they knew. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of the strategy behind that messaging at the time?
And so the strategy really had kind of a 50-50 approach. And half of it was catered towards what we call the tier one audience. And that's the brand image, what the general public sees. And we really took the approach of essential vehicles. We are important, and look at all of these community vehicles that we're working on. We have Amazon, UPS, fire trucks, police cars, school buses, not school buses then obviously, but all of these different vehicles. And at the same time, we partnered with some local organizations to try to give back and try to create some hope and some smiles. And we got involved with what's called the Curbside Concert Series, which was really neat, which created content for us to show some positive things, to give people hope, to let them know there are good things happening in this world, even though we're all being quarantined and shut down. And really through the months of April and May, I think that message was extremely important. The other 50% was catered to be extremely result-oriented with a strategic approach, that if there are those that are in the market and they are interested in replacing their vehicle or buying a newer used car or truck, that we would find them and they would find us, and we would be able to use that behavioral data, use our own database data, and be able to take an extremely strategic approach. So the brand image side, which you can call like the TV commercial side, even though we weren't doing much TV, it was more digital, so you could dial it up and change that budget daily if we had to. And then the other half was direct ROI based. And I think that was a strategy that when Christina and her team agreed and probably came up with half of it. I'm not taking all the credit. I don't come up with the ideas. I just have really smart people that we get to work with.
Right.
That when you hear a good idea and say, yes, let's put that into action today, it proved to give us the results that actually exceeded what our expectations were, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think people really did need to hear that brand message and that, like you said, hope during that time. Christina, what are some of the things that your team was able to do to get that message out in the market? You mentioned it was mostly digital, right? So how did you reach the Ricart audience?
So good question. So just kind of touching on one of the points you made, I think during this time, we saw dealers do one of two things. They either cut their budgets entirely or they got extremely agile and really relied on us to help them come up with creative ways to get in front of their audiences. With the Ricart organization, you guys already had a lot of the fundamentals in place. You had a solid digital retailing strategy. You guys pivoted incredibly quickly to offering health and safety options for your consumers. So for us, it was about taking that messaging and what you were doing already within your community and helping to get it in front of your customers. One of the things that we saw to be most valuable was meeting customers where they were at. One of the consumer shifts we experienced during that time frame was people were interacting with media much differently. They were also expecting a different message from brands. So we were able to take that message, identify where consumers were spending most of their time, and make sure that we were meeting them in those places with a message that would help make them feel better about shopping and engaging with brands during a time where anxiety was high and they just didn't know what to expect.
You know, you just reminded me, I didn't even remember that in April and May, I think it was April when we first offered free pickup and delivery to healthcare workers. And we wanted to make sure that if you were a doctor, a nurse, anyone in the healthcare field, and you needed to get an oil change or maintenance or something, or whether it was a vehicle purchase, if the doctor happened to get into an accident and needed to replace a vehicle, we wanted to be able to put them out front, really lay out the red carpets. So what we found was the general consumers really liked that message also. I remember in, I think, May and June, we offered free pickup and delivery for service for anyone. So if someone truly is quarantined, they don't want to leave their house, at the same time, they're going to need their automobile to go run some simple errands occasionally, and they need an oil change, us coming to pick up the car, bring it here, fix it, and take it back to them, allow them the peace of mind to not have to worry about going out and exposing themselves to the pandemic.
Yeah. And I think that was key. You guys did a great job being relevant, but also being really authentic. The Ricart business was willing to do whatever it took to help their customers feel better about working with the Ricart brand. And so it was easy for us to take that messaging, get it in front of the right audiences. We also were really strategic about not just doubling down on ROI driving advertising, so lower in the funnel search activity. We knew that because people were changing their consumer behaviors, they were consuming far more media, they were on social media platforms, ensuring that we were getting that message there and really tapping into our omni-channel strategy to engage with them over email, within Gmail, Facebook, YouTube. We really doubled down on that multi-channel approach.
Yes.
Yeah, what were some of the tactics that you adjusted because of that change in how consumers were, consuming their media, right? We saw people spending their time much more on social, right, and in their email. So were there some tactics that you tried that were different?
I use the term digitally extremely loosely, right? And it's really that omni-channel approach, like what Christina's talking about. And it's something that we push with all of our sales. When it comes to sales follow-up, you don't just want to make 12 phone calls to follow up. That just annoys a customer. Right. But if you spread it around and there's an email and there's a social media post and a direct message and there's an email advertisement and then they get a text message, and then they get the phone call. They're more apt to answer the phone and have that conversation because they may not even realize that they've been seeing your name and seeing this message because it's coming from all different directions. And I think that's important in all marketing today. For pandemic or not,
right?
That multimodal, multi-touch approach, it was wonderful that we have that available, but it's also extremely effective.
Yeah, it's what consumers expect today,
Yes,
whether they know what's happening or not, right?
Sure.
It's expected. And, at Sincro, we've got good capabilities to be able to get that out there. But so much of it is, does the dealer or the group have the right brand message, right? I mean, it's if you have something that will resonate, then it sticks with the customers.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
And that's one of the great part. Christina and her team gave us unbelievable feedback.
Yeah.
Because I think of the 5 or 6 initiatives that we did deploy, I guarantee you I had a list of 50 at one point, and some of those ideas were crazy. And they give me good, authentic feedback and go, well, I might not do that. I don't think you're going to like that, but idea 2 through 5, those are really good.
What's one that you did? What's one that didn't work? Do you remember?
Renting the plane and flying the sign around the city. I thought of that at one point. I had a friend at the little Lancaster airport that's down the road from us who offered, because they weren't doing any flights and there was no charters or anything, and said, "Do you want me to fly a sign or anything to help you advertise something?" And I thought, no, because then we're not trying to. You didn't want to come out and look like you're trying to sell anything either. It was a time in the world where everyone's mindset was really thinking about health and safety. Yeah. And to come out and say, hey, we're taking advantage of a pandemic and want to sell you something, like that would have negative backlash that I think would hurt tenfold. And there were some local dealers who kept car dealer type commercials on the air, screaming car payments and kind of value propositions that really were tone deaf for where the market was. Because if you think of where the consumer mindset was, no one wanted to be sold anything for at least those 3 months.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Christina, are there things that your team did to help Rick understand that consumer sentiment and what was resonating and not resonating?
Sure. Yeah. So during that time, I mean, we evaluated messaging really closely. So for us, it was about, and it was a learning experience for us too, right? Yeah. So I think we had a good partnership during that time because they had a really solid strategy, and it was easy for us with the tools and the data and the technology that we have to test different marketing and really see what was working. So we looked closely at, not just where the available market was to put messages in front of, but how were people responding to those messages? What were we seeing in terms of cost per lead and cost per click? We were also looking really closely at, we can get them to the website, right? We can find, there's always going to be available market. We can try to get them to the website, but then what happens once you get them there? How do you make sure that experience is seamless? And to Rick's point, people didn't want to be sold. So how do we highlight the great things that you guys were doing within your community? And that's what people wanted to see. I think the American Association of Advertising said 56% of consumers wanted to see the way that brands were connecting with their community during this time. So we really leaned in on that, and they were doing great things. I think one of the most creative things you guys did was that concert series where you were getting in the back of the pickup truck and offering free concerts to local communities. And it was things like that I think helped people feel comfortable still engaging in the same way. And as they had needs, right, you weren't selling to them, but you were there. And it was that consistency of just being there that I think helped us kind of stabilize our position and keep traffic both consistent, as well as, I mean, you guys really didn't experience some of the bigger dips in overall, traffic and leads that the advertising was generating, despite the fact that we were significantly pulling back on budgets and having to get much more cost efficient with what we were working with.
It really was incredible. And I don't want to toot too many horns on this, but the month of April, just to put in perspective, the month of April, we were the number 4 volume 4 dealer in the country. And our average per vehicle sold was less than $115. So we really, it was extremely strategic and smart and worked.
Yeah.
And the curbside concerts, having music put smiles on people's faces. We started with 1 truck that grew to 3 trucks. Now one of the neighborhoods in town have their own truck, and they're doing it on their own consistently. So that definitely grew legs and ran. We started doing Takeout Tuesday and Family Meal Friday, and those were a lot of fun because we have a wonderful PR firm, and they work with a lot of the local restaurants, not the national chains, but some really good local restaurants. And of course, restaurants were struggling immediately.
Yeah.
So to try to get them some awareness, we would go and pick up lunch on Tuesdays and bring it back to the staff here at work. And then on Fridays, I would leave work and go pick up a family meal for my family, which was really interesting as a parent to figure out in this new world, like, how do you, I don't want to cook every night. So how are you going to feed your kids and without spending $100 on Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of those? So we got with them, and these restaurants would put together these $40 to $50 meals for 4 to 6, and they got exposure, and they were thankful. And of course, the community's reaction to that was extremely positive to us for using our marketing content channels and budget to help promote them. But at the same time, we weren't trying to sell. We weren't being pushy at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's clearly very genuine and authentic interest in your community. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's amazing to see the creativity that local businesses have employed during these times. Are there things that you've tried and tested that you think will stay with you now with the business, even once we get hopefully soon to some new norm? Things are a little bit different.
I think the one of the bright spots is it definitely helped accelerate the education around digital retailing and around how many online tools are available for the consumer to be able, whether it's to schedule service or ask for a pickup and delivery service, or be able to almost do their entire deal from their couch in their home and their office at work. And these were tools that we were advertising for the past year and a half to 2 years. They weren't a necessity, so we really didn't see a lot of traction. Well, once the pandemic hit, and now all of a sudden, wait a minute, I don't want to go spend 4 hours sitting in a building that I don't know people and is going to be safe. Now that became the normal. It was a necessity. And so I think you'll see a lot more pre-work and information shared with consumers before they ever come to the dealership. And we've seen it now kind of in the past 2 months, now that I think most people are wanting to get out of their home when they can, when they know it's safe. So when they need to buy a car and they go on our website and they go through the process, in the beginning of the pandemic, we would call them once they were approved and they accepted the payment. We call them and offer to bring the vehicle to their home or to their office. And we had quite a few people that weren't even comfortable with that. And they wanted to meet us at neutral sites. And we delivered vehicles at the Columbus Airport cell phone lot.
Oh, wow.
I mean, well lit, there's security, and we would send a finance manager with the vehicle. We get the last few signatures on the hood of the car, stay 6 feet apart. And so we were kind of doing whatever it takes. I don't think we're going to go to that degree. But what we found is now when we're offering either to bring the vehicle to them or would they like to come here and celebrate taking delivery, it'll be approximately 45 minutes. We're getting a 95% response rate that they love to come to the dealership as long as they know what that time factor is and exactly what to expect. So a lot of the third-party disruptors that are trying to convince the public they don't like going to a car dealer is not accurate. They do like coming here as long as they're not a hostage.
As long as you respect their time.
And if the information is shared ahead of time and that puzzle is 80% complete, it's very easy to complete the transaction at that point.
I mean, there's nothing more frustrating to consumers than to have completed things online and then go into the delership and have to repeat themselves.
Number one mistake we can make today is hitting the reset button. Never hit the reset button on the consumer. I go crazy over duplicate data entry. If they have typed their name in something one time, they should not have to do that again. It should transfer and it should flow. And so that's something we've been working on big time.
You've been working on that for years. I remember sitting with you in Seattle, I think in 2018, and you had a napkin and you were mapping out the data flow and how you wanted to connect the whole customer journey before really anyone was doing it this way. So I know there's a lot of dealers that are trying to make digital retailing work now, right? They've been forced into it with the pandemic. You all already had the pipes laid, right?
Very grateful for that. Very grateful to have the tools in place, the training done. We had a year and a half of practice for what little volume that we had. So by the time that became the norm, we were already ready.
So the training of your team was critical. Are there other things that you would suggest to dealers that they really focus on to make that successful?
Marketing, the website presence, making sure your VDP page is on the website, making sure that you're giving customers an overload of accurate information. Because if you think about it, you're asking someone to make a buying decision having not engaged them. you're not persuading, you're not selling, you're not, doing a walk around in person and making the value of the car raise through that process. So to be able to tell the story of the vehicle and have a very fair and aggressive price and make sure that you're telling them everything and making sure it's accurate. Yeah. And that is, I think, the number one thing. And then the second part is you have to market. Yeah. You have to market. There is no set it and forget it program in our industry. Every dealer thinks there is. They want to buy the new shiny object that they can go golf and it sells cars for them. That doesn't work. You have to push. So once you understand the product and the training is in place, being able to take that message of how that is valuable to the consumer, you have to go to market with it. Mm-hmm. And what we like to do is we mention it at every touch point. So whether it's an email follow-up or text message, we like to put that link and tell someone, hey, by the way, here's a link to Express Checkout. If you'd like to save time in the showroom, click this button now and let's start sharing this information. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised that, for me, I think, look at how much money we've spent marketing this and tier 1 and electronic channels. And how do they not know about this? But you'll get somebody and then when you meet them in the showroom and go, but did you try Express Checkout? Like, what is that? It's like, we messed up on this one. Yeah. Because they should know what that is before they come in and everyone should have the option.
Yeah. Well, we're still training consumers to expect that from us, right? And it's not consistent across all of the dealers, right? Yes. So it is so much about the education right now. Christina, are there some strategies or tactics that you saw work really well in terms of getting that message out?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think what you touched on is really important. A lot of dealers want to put a digital retailing tool on their website, and in to some degree, they feel like that fixes the need that a consumer might have to shop online. The challenge that we've seen in that strategy is that unless you fully embrace it into your full marketing strategy as well as into your full website experience, users just don't know how to behave with those tools or what to expect when using them. So we learned, especially through our partnership with you, in the early stages when we were getting Auto5 put into the Sincro platform, we realized it's not just about getting it up and working, but actually integrating that experience into every touch point, making sure people understand how to use it, and really partnering with you to understand, all right, where do we layer this into our overall marketing strategy? How are those leads coming through, and are they as effective as what we're delivering to you through other solutions or other areas on the website where people are submitting their information? So there's a strong partnership that needs to be had between the dealer, the actual tool provider for that retailing solution, and whatever marketing agency that you're working with.
Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit more about what dealers should expect in terms of those data integrations, right? I mean, at Sincro, we're really working on how do we integrate with all of the major CRM, DMS, digital retailing providers. How do you suggest that dealers really push their partners to get integrated?
We have been such an external marketing company for so long. And that was something I inherited from my father. And it was, TV commercials, and you cast this big giant net and, big entertaining commercials and drive the up bus in by crowds. And that's the world's changed. That just doesn't happen anymore. Right. So now from a strategic standpoint, we've sold a lot of vehicles off this slot over the past 68 years. And not all 68 years are in the database, but there's enough names in there that we should be doing a better job of retaining and selling our customers, and really having a quality relationship with them on their terms. Mm-hmm. And that's the toughest part in our industry, because what do you mean on their terms? Most of the time we're just setting up triggers, and it's like, it's their birthday, or it's the car anniversary, or it's exactly 3.5 years since they bought it. And because they're at this interest rate, we should be hitting them with this and that. And I'm not saying that stuff is wrong. It's good touch points to stay top of mind, but it's not truly strategic. And when you know that there's website activity happening, and you know that customer that's in your database or CRM is now on the website shopping, or you see that there's CRM activity, whether it's a service appointment or other things, going on, or you find from social media that there's a lifestyle change happening, that's when those very strategic message, dynamic and cater to that customer, really take the next step. Yeah. And that's where taking all of those different platforms and saying, well, wait a minute, how do we leverage all of this? Mm-hmm. We have this wonderful dynamic website that really can do anything we want it to do. We have a CRM that does a great job of keeping all the information and letting us go in and finding it. And then this database that is probably one of our greatest assets that we have here, is this wonderful customer base. How do we leverage all that together in the digital space, not annoy people, and just take care of those things that they need done in this world when it comes to their automobile.
Right. Yeah, I think it's such a great point that especially dealers and groups like Ricart that have such a big database, right, and a pool to market to. And there's a notion, I think some people believe it's creepy or, you're stalking your customers. But if you do it well with the right message, I know I personally prefer to be marketed in a smart way where people actually understand where I am in my journey and what I'm looking for. I appreciate that, right?
Yes.
It feels smart.
Yep. And it's much more cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
It costs a lot less to serve a message to someone that has already shown trust in you.
Right.
If they've bought a vehicle here before,
right,
or even willing to let us work on their vehicle, there's some level of trust that's already established.
Right.
So it's much easier to create an engagement and reestablish a conversation.
Right. And maximize that trust that you've
Absolutely.
built with your community, right?
Yep.
Christina, what are some of the tactics that your team and things that you brought to the table to help Ricart maximize their own, customer audience?
Sure. So we have advertising set up with the Ricart organization where we tap directly into your DMS systems, and we're using all of your audience data in every piece of advertising pretty much that we run. And so it's targeting various segments based on some of the things you talked about. So meeting them in the moments where you would expect them to want to re-enter the market, but also using that customer base to create what we sometimes refer to as likely buyer audiences, to learn from the customers who have shopped with the Ricart organization and find customers who show similar tendencies or demonstrate similar behaviors online. What we also learned is how we could take that data and not just use it for the moments that, those hard milestones that we know that they might be re-entering the market, but getting in front of them early and influencing their behaviors throughout their shopping cycle. We have the capability of taking that audience list and understanding what they're doing online and strategically getting in front of them with the Ricart messaging that we believe does help to accelerate that purchase process. So let's say someone is 18 months out from wanting to get back into the market. How do you delicately start to remind them of the Ricart organization, start to build up some of that brand presence so that when they are ready to actually buy a vehicle, instead of going to the search engines and looking for a specific vehicle, they're looking for the Ricart brand. And especially during COVID, what we did with a lot of that audience information was continue to stay consistent with that brand messaging. So now when people are more comfortable shopping and we know the market is starting to feel more comfortable with more price-based messaging and messaging that truly captures their intent a little bit more. So, deal-oriented or price-oriented content. They're looking for the Ricart brand. We've seen those brand searches just continue to be stable. And I think that's because of the way that we've been engaging with them throughout these last few months, really strategically.
I think that's kind of the funnel that we created. If you think about it, the top of the funnel was those community messages, the feel good, the brand. Then you got the convenience messages with Express and pickup and delivery. Then as they're towards the bottom of the funnel, it was more transactional. It was things that should relate to a vehicle purchase within 72 hours.
Yeah. And we've found that the transactional messaging is resonating now with people. So where you might have stayed away from that during the early months of COVID, people are now a little bit more fatigued by some of that COVID related messaging, right? They want to feel normal. They want to have some normalcy in their lives. So we've studied really closely just the way people are engaging with the different ads. And we've been able to keep the COVID-related messaging secondary, so people still understand their convenience options. People who have health concerns still understand what the Ricart organization is doing to meet those concerns, but also starting just to integrate the regular customer-focused, vehicle-focused ads within that strategy as well. And it's starting to pick up on some of that lower in the funnel shopping activity that is producing good leads, I think, for your business. Yeah. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The quality of leads, and when you follow a strategy like that, it just creates a more quality customer. That was something I've been big on for years. It's not just advertising to bring people through the door. Yeah. If you think about the direct mail gimmicks of the past, and you send a key to someone's house and you just want a new Chevy Caprice, and they're coming in, and let's face it, 99% of them can't even get finance. That would come in, oh, I get a free car. So we've always been looking to attract a higher quality customer, and ones that are in the market and in the buying cycle, not so much the ones that are coming in just to see if this crazy deal can happen and they can keep their same car payment because they have negative equity. So we're looking for the more quality customers. That's definitely a strategy that helps us find those. I'll go back to the transactional side. So you made me remember, I think up until a month or two ago, the first message you had to put out was a message on clean and sanitary and socially distant, and we'd have to show what that was like and then talk about the prices and the deals.
Yeah.
And now it is the second part. Now you can have a transactional message. They are interested, and then we like to share, oh, and by the way, we are still maintaining our COVID cleaning protocols. We're still sanitary. Okay. We're wearing masks. We're washing hands. We have the dividers between everyone. We're doing all those steps.
Yeah.
Which I think was a fear in the middle of the summer. Like, I better know that's happening before I go to that place of business. I think consumers are expecting that now. I don't think any business could be operating without following all of those guidelines, whatever the state guidelines are. But it's still important to reiterate to them, say, and by the way, we are still taking this very serious, and we do care.
Yeah.
We care about their health and safety.
I agree. And I think what's key is, so the health and safety messaging being almost a secondary messaging stream, still available so people can still understand, especially people who maybe have more anxiety or more concern around the subject. The other thing that's really important too, though, is shopper expectations with how they work with car dealerships has changed because they've seen how you guys can really cater to their needs now. So it's not just about reverting back to what maybe you knew as automotive buying in the past. It's making sure that you're still setting expectations with your customers regularly on what they can expect when they do come into your dealerships, and continuing to make those tools available to them if they want a more convenient option, or you guys to deliver the vehicle, right? Yes. That stuff still needs to be present and important.
Yeah. In fact, we're making progress to continue to develop those processes and tools, and we're not even close to being done. I still feel like the tools and the processes can get even better, can get more accurate. The flow can go faster, and find a way to give the customer an even better experience in the future.
What's your goal when you think about that customer experience? You just had to summarize it.
That is an absolute great question. My expectations, I think, are to satisfy the toughest guest. And what is our consumers' biggest expectation today? And everyone's situation is different. If you have a well-to-do individual who has no trade-in, they want to buy a car or truck. Goes back to what my grandpa used to tell me when, people would walk in and shake his hand and hand him a check, and it was done. And he handed them a title and they drove away. And it was so easy back in the 60s. And now it could have taken 5 minutes. And I think the expectation today, when you think about the amount of paperwork and all of the different parties involved, you have the dealer. If it's a new car, you have the OEM, you have the lender, you have the government, you have compliance and legal and everything that has to come together. The vehicle and the customer. So it's unrealistic to think, it's going to be a 5-minute process in the future. But I think we can get it down to, if everything we say is accurate, if we are 100% authentic online and with what we've communicated, from the second the guest arrives here, vehicle is what we said it is, the deal is what we said it is, everything matches up, it should be a 20 to 25-minute process, if that's what they want.
That's great. That's a good challenge to all of us,
Super
the providers in this industry, to continue to drive towards that, because it is what consumers expect today. And frankly, the auto industry's been behind in creating those great buying experiences, because you all have been hampered by, I think, some of the tools and the data not connecting. And
I'll show my age a little, because when I first started selling cars, none of this was available.
Yeah.
We had the spiral bound notebook,
right.
There were no CRMs. And I was trained to sell cars to take as much time as I possibly could. There's gross in time.
Right.
And you'd hear about throwing the keys to the trade on the roof of the building just to hostage the guest, because the longer you could hold them there, the more money you could end up making. And I thought that was craziness.
Right.
So now where the world's at is, time is the new currency.
Yeah.
And it's the number one pain point that people have of going to a car dealership for anything. Yeah. So the more we can address that issue, and I have this old saying, you don't have to be faster than the bear, You just have to be faster than the other guy in your tent. And so to get to 20 minutes would be wonderful, but as long as we're 5 to 10 minutes faster than any of our competition, we're making progress.
Yeah. It's the time. And you also said something that really struck about, every customer is different, right? And so hitting everyone with the same message. I mean, what's striking me here is just the layers of messaging, right? You have the safety messaging, you have the transactional, the deal messaging, you've got the lifestyle messaging. There's so many different things and it depends on the customer, right? And what they want, which is challenging to execute, right?
Taking that predictive analytics and finding which bucket we feel strongly they fall in today, and trusting the data to provide that is something I think I would have been absolutely scared of a few years ago. Like, there is no way you can do what you're claiming you can do for us. And then now it's like, oh, that's so cool. How can I take that to another level?
That's great to hear. Yeah, you said data. I know as a business leader, I know I've had to make decisions so quickly in the last 7 months, right? You just have to act fast. And without data, it's really scary to do that, right?
We're an information-driven decision-making industry now.
Yeah.
So yes, having good, clean, accurate, simple data is imperative.
Yeah. That's it's good to hear that you feel like you're getting that. So that makes me happy. Certainly, having been in this industry for 20 plus years, I think I've stuck with it to try to get to this point, and we can do better. But gosh, we're getting there, right?
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Rick, I want to pivot for a minute and ask you your thoughts around inventory. And we're hearing from a lot of our dealers who are either currently experiencing inventory shortages or are very nervous about that over the next, through this winter. What are some of the things that you all are doing to try to address, inventory shortages and acquiring inventory?
And you guys know I love marketing, and innovation and marketing to me are the only parts of a business that matter. The great Peter Drucker once said, everything else is just a cost.
Right.
But when you think about a sales division, there's three departments. There's inventory, personnel, and promotion. And the marketing promotion is important, but not if you don't have the product. So March 12th, one of the first things that we did have to make a quick decision on was, hey, this may create an inventory shortage. Let's not turn away anything. Any vehicles manufacturers are offering, just say yes. On the used car side, the used car market went absolutely haywire. Cars were worth above retail, and you just have to keep buying them. I had to bring ice packs to our buying team and say, keep your hands in the air. Your shoulders are going to hurt, but you got to keep those hands in the air. And most of it's digital now, but you got to buy the car. We got to keep feeding the machine. When it came to some of the new car inventory, unfortunately, some regions had some more difficulty than we did here in the Midwest, especially the Southeast. And there was a scenario where there was some Fords that were scheduled to go to another region that they had to turn down because they just weren't able to accept them. Their businesses weren't open. So we went ahead and put our hand up and said, we'll take everything you can give us. So we have been very fortunate with our inventory levels. We think the brands that we have done a wonderful job to adapt to find that inventory, and if there's something they can't build or produce, they just try to make it up with some other model lines. So it has not affected us negatively yet to this point.
Well, it certainly sounds like you leaned in and raised your hands, like you said. So good.
You got greedy and took them all.
Smart moves.
You guys also did some We Buy Cars campaigns.
Yes.
Which I think was also pivotal, and I think important for dealers to be thinking about, as you're thinking about vehicle acquisition strategies during this time, maybe for a dealership who wasn't as strategic about raising their hand during when it was really critical or the pandemic was hitting really hard. For dealers that are trying to recover from that, I think there's some power in marketing to the right people and letting consumers know that you want to buy their vehicle. Because I know for me, even as a consumer, there was a dealer group somewhere in Michigan that was promoting that they would buy my car over market value. And I hadn't even thought about bringing it in or shopping for a vehicle at that time, but it made me think, I wonder what they would pay me for it, And I think that's important too, just staying in front of those consumers with that type of message.
Absolutely. Because if you think about it, would you have just sold your vehicle, or would you have probably had to replace it, right?
Right.
So they're getting two transactions out of it. So that's why I really like the message of We Buy Cars. Yes, if we can acquire the vehicle, if they don't need to replace it and we can buy it for the used car department, wonderful. But the vast majority of the time, they need to replace it. We end up getting a new or used vehicle sale out of it.
Exactly.
So it really is a message that helps all of the departments also. It's a very collaborative message throughout the entire campus.
Right. Rick, I know that some dealerships, again, we've said sort of hunker down during this time. Let's not try anything new. I think you all are the opposite. It seems like you tried a lot of new business ideas, new things over the last 7 months. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the new ventures?
I'll make you laugh. The Bandit was born on March 12th. As I stood in the Atlanta airport and people were freaking out, I thought, they're going to need some kind of character to get them through this. Oh, yeah. And so I jotted online and I bought this black Australian Outback hat. Okay. Because if you put a face mask on with it, it's that old kind of Bandit logo. Nice. And I started wearing that hat in all of our marketing and all around it. And part of that is this isn't going to stop us. We're going to keep moving forward. Right. Even if the steps are smaller, we're going to keep moving forward. In fact, in the middle of March, we opened a whole new fleet and commercial division. We actually opened a new Harley Davidson point of all things. That's been an interesting business to follow and kind of watch go through. But it actually turned out to be a positive because with the pandemic, motorcycles, camping, recreational sports, boating, those interests in our state have risen significantly, and the demand for those have been fantastic. So, which I love to see. I love the people getting out in our backyard and doing stuff. So part of innovation is you have to keep going. You can't stop, rest on laurels, and just say, I'm just not going to try anything new for 6 months. Let's just let this all kind of run out. Right. It's the old Michael Jordan theory. If no matter how hard you think you're practicing, somebody somewhere is practicing harder than you. Yeah. You have to keep staying ahead of it.
Yeah. No, kudos to you for doing that during these times. Sure. A lot of people wouldn't have. So along those lines, Christina, are there things that your team with Sincro, Ricart is generally a partner that's willing to try new things. We know that. And they push us to do new things, which we love. Are there things that you tested specifically with this group that tested new areas for us?
Fortunately, I think before the pandemic hit, we had a pretty intense audience targeting strategy already in place. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it was leaning on some of the fundamentals that we had already established, getting the DMS data integrated into our advertising messaging, really ensuring that your digital retailing experience was an experience on the website, but not just a tool that was layered into the site. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it was leaning on what was there. I think we did learn a lot about really monitoring the message. And I think closer than ever, right? So at Sincro, we have advertising technology that to some degree, it's programmatic. It's learning how people are behaving with the advertising. It's making adjustments in real time. It's making messaging adjustments in real time. But where we had to really get involved is tailoring that message to a completely different shopper and one that was spending way more time in media channels that we hadn't put as much budget into or as much prominence on, just based on where we usually get involved in that automotive consumer cycle. So I think for us, it was really understanding how quickly the consumer behavior could shift. And it was like, throw your playbook out the window. Now it's, we don't really know how people are going to react, and actually studying every single click, every single campaign, and making those adjustments alongside the consumer and still doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's key is you can't stop. And as dealers think about their advertising moving forward, it's so important to work with a company that can do it programmatically, but also has the people that are committed to evaluating that and putting the human touch to it. Because it was the human element of us experiencing the pandemic alongside automotive consumers and understanding, all right, we got to shift gears here, and we have to continue shifting gears, and really adjusting to what is now the new normal. I think that was what was key during that time.
Well, so much good information shared, Rick. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our dealers around, what's worked for Ricart? Anything we didn't get to today that would be good for people to hear about?
So no, the only thing I would say is just make sure you find the right partner out there. Get with the right partner that offers the tools that can truly work with you to help your dealership find a way to be more efficient and is willing to adapt and try those new tools, because who knows what the next 6 months or year is gonna bring.
Yeah, I really think the things we've all learned will help us navigate the next 6 months and beyond. Absolutely. And just become better at what we do, right?
Absolutely.
So good.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you so much for having us today, Rick. I am certain that all of our dealers listening walk away with immediate actions that they can take to improve how they're communicating with their customers today and planning for tomorrow, and also what they can expect of their partners. I mean, whether it's Sincro or their other partners, what they should be expecting in terms of the technology, the services, the data, to help groups like Ricart make good decisions going forward. So we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you to everyone at Sincro, Jen, Christina, and your whole team, Reagan, and our whole marketing department. It's been one wonderful ride and partnership. And if you don't have a partner like Sincro, give them a call today.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick.